Excuse me, Mr. DJ.
Hey, check this out. We got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, it's the Midday Market Report with Jeff Dawson.
ECSI fans, do you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all of your sports books and track all of your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You can also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as they're the best account on the platform. Head to the App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire to download the app.
Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is our weekly 3 Men in a Box NCAA football show with none other than Matt Grissom and Quentin Mills. November 3rd, 2023, Friday. First Friday in November. We all made it to the weekend. Shout out to our new sponsor and partnership with WagerWire. If you have not downloaded the app, please go to Google Play or wherever you download the apps. It's free. Go down, scroll down, a bunch of sports books there, free bets, promos, yada, yada, yada. Sync up your bets to whatever app's available, sports books available in your state. If you're looking for a little flash cash, it's that time of year, less than 2 months till Christmas. 'Tis the season. Send an email to affiliate@wagerwire.com. Travis, Zach, the rest of the team will take good care of you. And, of course, tell them JD from ECSI sent you. And all will be well. Shout out to the men behind the glass. Joe Shea, Evan Lewis, Cade Horton, Olu, and Bennett. Thank you for all you guys do. But it's the Hatfield versus the McCoys. I can't wait to talk about this game. As the Arkansas Razorbacks travel to Florida. So I can't wait to hear both sides. I can tell you this right now, guys. My true number was 5.5 with a 48.5. It's down to 3.5. 3 in some books, even at South Point. So I think Matt Grissom is moving money as he's going to find a way to get down on his Razorbacks this week. But Quentin Mills is going to say, not so fast, sir, not so fast. So without further ado, let's bring them in, the two stars of this show, the one and only Quentin Mills and Matt Grissom.
What's going on, Jeff?
I can guarantee you I'm not moving money, especially on the Arkansas Razorbacks.
I don't know. I do know this. I don't know if it's a curse or not, but in Kelly Stewart's dog parlay of the week, one of them is the Arkansas Razorbacks. Maybe that's a shout out to you, Matt.
I had her on as a special guest interview yesterday that will air live with our show this afternoon once we conclude yours. So that was a little teaser, but she did. She picked the Arkansas Razorbacks and took them on the money line.
That's tough money to lose.
Quentin, how are you?
I'm good. It's a Friday. We got some college football tonight. Big slate tomorrow. Starts off at noon. Gainesville. It's the military appreciation game. I'm excited for it. All game aside, I think what Billy Napier does with that, he's done it at Louisiana. I think it's incredible to what he does and to honor the troops. So I hope Florida gets recognition for that tomorrow. But it should be a good game. Both teams aren't the top of the SEC, cream of the crop, but somebody's got to come out on top, and I think we're going chomping on some hogs.
Yeah. Matt, let me ask you this question. As Quentin said, both teams not where they want to be. Still games left on the schedule. Obviously, still bowl games to be made. No national titles in sight for either one of you guys this year. When does pride step in? When, it's not like you're playing for draft picks here and you're going to say, we're going to, excuse me, lose the last few games so we get a better draft slot. Matt, what's the tone in Arkansas? And I know you're a diehard fan. What goes on to the Arkansas fan base right now?
Mostly just being distraught. We went through it with the Chad Morris era of just playing disrespectful football, for lack of better words. And, you get rid of Dan Enos. I think he was probably the scapegoat in a lot of issues, but if it makes KJ Jefferson play better, that's what it's going to take to win football games. He's not played particularly well at all this season. Rocket Sanders has been hurt / I'm saying it's more of he doesn't want to play. But I mean, at the end of the day, pride should have stepped in 6 weeks ago when you got beat at home by BYU, and it didn't. And Kenny Guyton comes in, never called a play before, and he's shrunk 60% of our playbook down, which, I'm a football nut. I can't tell you all the X's and O's, but it looks like we had about a 15-play playbook. So if we just lost 60% of it, I'm going to assume we're going to see a lot of halfback dives, fly routes, and KJ Jefferson going over the top. If you remember back of the A&M game last year where they took it to the house after he fumbled, that may not bode well for Arkansas. Shout out to Kelly, though, for putting her money where her mouth is on this Arkansas Razorbacks team. Godspeed. That's all I could say. I mean, the Razorbacks don't look like anything worth writing home about. This is like bring your lunch pail to work. I mean, what do you have? You've got to dig deep and put it out there in Gainesville. And that's a tough place to play, and it's a tough defense to do it against. So I'm not holding out a whole lot of hope.
Q, when I looked at the numbers last week, I honestly thought, I should have known better. The dreaded 14.5. Georgia had been 14.5-point favorites earlier in the year to Kentucky, and they whitewashed them. They were 14.5 to the Gators. Take us back to last Saturday leading up to the game and your thoughts against Georgia. Again, a box to wire. Actually, I should say box to wire. If I remember correctly, Florida got out to that 7-0 lead. I was like, oh, shit, here we go. You had talked about, a potential teaser up to 21. They end up, as you said, they're either going to keep it close or lose by 30, and they did. So thoughts leading up to the game and then your actual recap of the game.
Yeah, I stand by what I said. It kind of got away late, but I think if you watch the game, it was a little closer than what people thought. Georgia kind of took it off the gas in the second half. Florida did make some defensive adjustments, which was good to see, but Florida killed themselves. Billy Napier coming into the week wanted to start fast, and they did, and they were successful. Trey Wilson, I think he had 4 catches on the first drive and scored a nice 30-yard touchdown. That was great. You could tell Georgia was kind of smacked in the mouth, and they were like, wait a second. We got to actually kind of play now. And I think Billy Napier's play call when they were – well, first off, I think they got a bad spot, but, 4th and 1 and 4th and inches, I can't imagine the play call is that different. It might go from the tush push to maybe a running back, up the gut or something like that. But all in all, you're still only within 1 yard. And Florida took a bad spot, and they made it worse by having a dumb play where you try to snap it between the quarterback's legs. And I think that's where the momentum really turned for Florida. It kind of had them down. And then the kill shot was, deep in your own territory. And then you have the block punt for a touchdown. Outside of those 2 possessions, I thought Florida showed some fight. I thought, the offensive line battled. They got pretty destroyed in the first half, made some adjustments in the second. There were some positives. I think that the negatives were actually on the coaching staff, and they, seemed to be a little accountable of it. heading into this week, I think Florida responds well. They're in a different place than what Arkansas is. Florida has made the coaching change last year. They're in a rebuild stage from what has been 10 years of just total destruction for Gainesville. I think Arkansas is trying to figure out, are they going to go down that road? Are they going to make the coaching change? So I think you have one coach saying, hey, give me a process. I'm trying to clean up somebody else's mess. And then you have the other side where they don't know if they have a mess or not. They're trying to figure it out. So I think Florida actually plays really well this week. I think, they're going to take accountability. I think you're going to see a little better coaching management, whether it's play calling and aggressiveness. And I think Florida has bounced back pretty well in some spots this year. And I think this game means a lot to them. They've got the number one recruit coming into town, trying to impress him. The last couple times they've had a top recruit, they've really showed out. And I think they want to keep this build, and I think they do it against Arkansas here and win by a touchdown.
Q, in your eyes, I mean, I know you follow the college football. The first committee poll came out. They had Georgia number 2 behind Ohio State, which we know this is going to all play out. But in your eyes and the eye test, is Georgia the best team in the country or the best team that you have seen so far this year?
I think there's two ways of looking at it. I think you can look at it, as Matt and I talked about, Ohio State up to this point has played the tougher schedule. I don't think anybody can argue that. But then you also can look at it as Georgia didn't just win last year's national title. They won the year before. So can you really take the number one team that hasn't lost a title in 2 years out of the number one spot until somebody takes them down? I think you can justify both ways. I think I test Georgia. We're going to know what they are this week against Missouri. Missouri took them down on the wire last year and almost beat them. Frankly, should have beat them. They just collapsed in the second half and couldn't move the ball. Georgia seems to where they play kind of up and down a competition. I think they take Missouri seriously this year, seeing what Missouri's done, especially with Carson Beck. He's still a little bit of a question mark. He can't just turn it on and turn it off, maybe like Stetson Bennett could. I think Georgia actually wins by 17 here to kind of make a statement. And I think we're starting to see Georgia kind of fire on all cylinders and trying to figure out other weapons outside of Brock Bowers. They get Ladd McConkey back, which is huge last week. So I think we're going to see what Georgia is. If they play in a tough game and Missouri hangs, then yeah, Ohio State's the better team in my opinion up to this point. If they blow out Missouri like they have, Florida and Tennessee, Kentucky, then Georgia's the best team.
Matt, what was your thought on Tuesday when you saw the top 4? You guys both know, or I assume you know, who I think the best team in the country is. They're outside looking in, and that's Oregon, who, again, I strongly feel that if Oregon cheats, they will get into the Final Four. But, Matt, what did you think of the committee in the top 4?
I wasn't surprised to see Ohio State first. I know a lot of people may have been. I just think that they value the wins over Notre Dame and who else did they beat in the top 25? I can't even remember anymore. Penn State. Yeah. Georgia. I guess the biggest thing was the inconsistency, though. Like you give credit for beating a top 25 team in Notre Dame, but you didn't do it for what Oklahoma is dropped to 9th behind Texas. 7th is Texas. Alabama's right there in between them. There's just a lot of back and forth. Granted, Oklahoma lost to Kansas, so I'm looking at unupdated numbers. But I don't know. All in all, I think at the end of the day, it's all going to work itself out. But they're going to have a mess on their hands if we keep talking about these hypotheticals where you have a bunch of 1-loss, 2-loss teams fighting for the top 4. We should have gone to a 16-team playoff a long time ago. We didn't. And the last year that we have this 4-team, it may show its flaws pretty badly. But, yeah, I think Oregon will find their way back into the top 4. And outside of that, I think Michigan continues to do what they do, and then Ohio State's going to ultimately get put out. But I don't really have any problems with how it is right now.
Before we jump into your six-pack and Quentin's picks of this week, I want to talk about one of the marquee games this week in the SEC, and it's Alabama and LSU. A few weeks ago, we gave out ECSI Alabama plus 2,000 at halftime of the Arkansas game. They played a great first half, and Matt, hats off to the Razorbacks, played a hell of a second half, had opportunities, almost came back and won that game in Tuscaloosa. Last weekend, I noticed a huge shift in the Heisman Trophy. A lot of money came in on Jaden Daniels, and where he's, I think, now third in the Heisman Trophy rankings. And the reason I'm bringing this up, Matt, is Alabama is only -3 against a 2-loss LSU team. Now, LSU lost opening day to Florida State. Florida State hasn't lost. And then, of course, they gave up the 55 burger to Ole Miss. So at Ole Miss and lost that game. Now, so part of me thinks that the Sharps came in and hammered Jaden Daniels to win the Heisman, and they probably bet in Alabama this week to kind of hedge that bet. I haven't heard one person that likes LSU this week, yet that line is stuck on 3 on Alabama and Tuscaloosa. What's your thoughts?
I've thought everybody is on LSU to the point where it worried me. I just cashed out my bet, lost I think $6 on a $100 bet just so I could turn around and bet the money line. I saw on Gil Alexander's show this morning, I think Chris Felica's on LSU. I think Tim Murray, Matt Humans, they all like LSU. Okay. So it worries me. That being said, I don't see how Alabama loses this game at home. So it may be a close game. I think Jaden Daniels, I think he has a really good game. I keep getting him in the Kansas quarterback confused. I think he has a really good game, but at the end of the day, Alabama's defense is a lot better than LSU's. LSU's offense is a tad bit better than Alabama's. So I think you've got to give the edge to Nick Saban at home.
I thought the same thing about a month ago when Texas came in and I got egg on my face there. But I think Milrose is starting to get it, and the defense is rounding into shape. I can't remember the last time a Nick Saban team lost 2 games at Tuscaloosa. I just thought the number seemed a little short there. So I was kind of like, something smells here. But I think what I'm going to do, the easiest play I'm going to do, and take the Alabama team total over 31.5. Let them get it into a shootout, and then I don't give a rat's ass who wins. How's that?
It's probably a good way to attack it. Kelly said something else that kind of sparked my interest was Alabama's second half line. It's -0.5 point. Alabama's played a lot better in the second half of these games. You look back at the Tennessee game in particular, but I think Alabama, even if they're down at the half, which is what I'll probably be rooting for, having that half point, I think Alabama will make adjustments and come out in the second half and be able to shut down LSU's offense.
You said Alabama -0.5 in the second half or +0.5?
-0.5.
All right, so they're probably going to be up 3 or 4. And all right, well, I'll keep an eye on that one for sure. Q, before we get to your picks, is a game out west. And the first one to 40 wins, and it's another one that smells like holy heaven. The Washington Huskies, who since beating Oregon have played with their food, as I like to say, or played grab ass the last 2 weeks, still undefeated. I traveled to USC, which if you and I and Matt suited up, I think we all could score against the USC defense. An under-over that opened at 71, that's 76.5 and climbing. I know a lot of sharps think this is the week. USC stands up. The Heisman, Caleb Williams, says to Penix Jr., not so fast. And the Trojans find a way to outscore the Huskies. Thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I'm actually opposite because of what happened last week. USC should have lost that game. They got lucky to win that. I think they go back to who they are. They're not a good defensive team. I didn't like Caleb Williams' comments. He's kind of like Ryan Day, where he said he had one bad game in 3 years. Well, that's not true, because you've lost multiple games this year, and ultimately you're the best player on the field. I think Washington gets right. I think they were kind of sleepwalking for a couple games. It's hard to get up week in and week out for these kids. It's not their jobs, right? They do have academics and travel, and when you're a pro, it's a little different when that's all you have to worry about. I think Washington had this game circled on their calendar early on in the year. They know it's a big game. It's massive now, because I think if you lose this game, it may take you out of the hunt, because you're going to have to play Oregon or somebody like that again, and you could be looking at 2 losses, and they don't want that. I think Penix kind of gets right. I think Washington gets back to form, and you're going to see the Washington team that played Oregon. And I think they're going to handle USC. Again, like you mentioned, the USC defense, we could at least score a touchdown. We probably have 100 reception yards, 75 rush yards on them. I'm not buying the USC team. I've never been a Lincoln Riley guy. I think Caleb Williams is kind of fraudulent in his own right. Very me guy, and I think it shows again, and USC catches another loss.
It's about that time in the show, Matt. We're still looking for a sponsor. Viva, Anheuser-Busch, whatever is out there. We're looking for the start of the Matt Grissom 6-pack. So start us off, Matt.
We're getting drunk this weekend because I've got a 15-pack. How about that? Going back to the Washington USC game, I did jump on USC +4. Now that it's -3, it's a toss-up. I think USC is a fraudulent team. And at what point do we just say this team is not very good? If Caleb Williams isn't perfect on every single drive, I don't know if that defense can stop anybody, especially the team that ranks #1 in offensive success rate in Washington. You've got the #5 overall offensive EPA team versus the #2 overall offensive EPA team. Neither of these teams play defense. I expect this to be a track meet. And with a total of 76.5, I could only bet that over. But at the end of the day, I like Caleb Williams. I was high on USC going into the season. It's been an abysmal season that hasn't shaped out how I thought it would. I'm probably going to lose this bet, but I'm on USC +4. So we'll start it off with that. I'm oppo with a lot of guys I respect on this one. I took Oklahoma -6. I just don't think Oklahoma State has been tested. They lost early in the season, South Alabama. And before you say, oh, that was a long time ago, it wasn't too long ago that Oklahoma just got their butt handed to them by Kansas in what was an embarrassing loss where they were the better team. The stats show they were the better team. They had no business losing that game, which probably cost them a shot at the college football playoff. I think they get right, beat up on little brother one more time before leaving the Big 12. And then Miami, the forgotten team, thanks to Mario Cristobal for not kneeling it. I took them -3.5. I just think Miami is still undervalued here in the market for what they are. They're still a very solid ACC team. And then another one, I'm not buying into Clemson. They're a 4-4 team. They're not very good. Dabo, and I know now he's getting called out, and he's up there at the podium crying that people are too hard on him. I wish somebody would pay me $9 million a year and I can go 4-4. I would expect people to be very upset with me. Give me Notre Dame. I took them early on the money line. I think -160. I think Notre Dame wins by at least a touchdown. My numbers made this 7.1 in favor of Notre Dame. If you erase the Clemson name on that and just align the stats, this is Notre Dame all the way. And then I also did Nebraska money line. I just think with the way Matt Rule is playing right now, give me the Cornhuskers. They're playing with a lot more firepower than what I anticipated in Rule's first season. I think this win would get them bowl eligible. So congrats to Matt Rule for his first season, not going 2-10 like the previous years have gone. I'll let Q kind of interject in here. As always, all of my plays will be tweeted out, and you can check it out on the bet tracker at NCAA Insiders for all of them. I'm not going to rattle off all 15 of them, but they are on there.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I'm going to echo. I called the Nebraska game to a T last week. The Nebraska game, Purdue couldn't score on that defense. They got a lucky fumble return for a touchdown. They even get the second touchdown, which should have never occurred. I'm on Nebraska, but I doubled up -2.5 and the money line. Matt Rule, credit to him. He's given halftime speeches that'll make you cry and go to battle for him. You know, like Matt said, you know, bowl eligible is massive for that program, really, in recruiting and momentum. So I think they get it done against a Michigan State team that hasn't won since Mel Tucker's been fired. I like Florida. I talked about it. I think they get right. I actually bought them down to -2.5. I don't think they're going to blow them out by any means. It's going to be either a field goal or a touchdown game. So that's at -156. A little juicy, but I like it for the insurance. I think Penn State kind of bounces back too. They lose a game in Columbus. Then they have to play, you know, an Indiana team that's kind of given them some struggles the last couple of years. I think they get right on this Maryland team that seemingly fell apart. I believe they started 4-1. Now they're 5-3. They've got a couple bad losses. It just seems like Lackley's kind of lost right now and trying to figure out the traction for the team. And I don't think it's against Penn State. I think Penn State wins by 10+. That's Penn State -8.5. I think Ole Miss money line kind of gets the Jimbo fired bit here. I think Ole Miss is semi-legit this year. They're playing at home. They should expect a sold-out crowd. They're in Oxford. You know, I think A&M secretly wants Jimbo to lose so they can kind of put the pressure on them. That'll give them their 4th loss. Texas A&M has a decent defense. Ole Miss has a high-powered offense. I think Ole Miss is just going to be able to score enough, and their defense is going to play enough against an A&M offense that isn't totally explosive. I mean, they can score, but in a matchup here, I think they lose that on the road. And then I have a teaser: Iowa +1.5 and Auburn down to -5.5. I think what Hugh Freeze has done in his first year in Auburn's pretty good. I like them to cover that touchdown spread on the road. And I think Iowa is the same. It's a little trap spot against Northwestern, but I think Northwestern played extremely well last week against Maryland. I think there's some regression that's going to happen against a stout Iowa defense. So I think Iowa gets it done on the road as well.
Some great games that you guys have covered. You both doubled down on Nebraska. Obviously, good eyes last week. Quentin on Nebraska. As you guys probably know, I probably told you 10 million times. My all-time favorite team back in the 80s, the Wishbone, the Turner Gills, the Urban Friars, the Coach Toms. And what I loved most about them is 4th and 8, they'd call a timeout. They'd line up in the Wishbone and they would verbally tell you, hey, we're going to run the ball right here. And you couldn't stop them. And it was just amazing because back then it was a sea of red. It was back when Nebraska was so prominent and they had a little flashes late 80s, early 90s. And it's just been so dismal since. And dying for them to get back to relevancy, as you said. And I think Matt Rule is that guy. And this is his biggest game as a Nebraska head coach because it's a team where they're favored on the road. And it's one of these, as you said, you got an opportunity to get to 6 wins, a team that you're supposed to beat in Michigan State. And as crazy as this sounds, if they cheat and make sure Minnesota doesn't beat Ohio State, which we know won't happen, Nebraska could be in the Big Ten conference championship game from the West.
Yeah, crazy to think about.
Matt, before we close shop up, I know you gave us 5. You got 15 on your sheet. You can add one more for your 6-pack, and if you want the cherry on top, you can throw one more if you'd like.
Well, Alabama money line was one that I talked about earlier. That would have been my 6th. But I also joined Q on Iowa. I've got them -3.5. I got that Sunday. I think it's steamed up to like 6 at this point. And then this is probably a lame play, but I parlayed Alabama and Notre Dame in the money line is +158. I just think these two teams are elevated above what their competition is. And I just don't see them losing Notre Dame should handle Clemson. Alabama should come out against LSU. Even if it's close, give me Nick Saban at home.
Either one of you, any leans, or I know Matt must have a ticket on one of the games tonight.
I ran some numbers. I've been working with Harrison Eller, Jason Kaminsky, and then Parker Fleming is awesome about putting out his score projections. We're trying to build a model. I think it started 9-4. It hasn't been extremely good here in the midweek, but the non-Power 5 schools are really hard because the data is kind of all over the place. But right now, I've got Boston College as a plus 1.6 point dog. You can get 3 with them tonight against Syracuse. Dino Babers, this Syracuse team just kind of looks lost right now. Boston College, it's an ugly dog to take on the road, but plus 3, the numbers say that's the play. So if you dare bet it, go with the Golden Eagles.
Last road game at Georgia Tech was a win. I was there Saturday against UConn. Just a gentleman-like performance. They played down to their competition, which they did opening day against UNI, second week against Holy Cross, and then again, no problems. UConn played hard, and they're collecting a check this week as they got to travel to Tennessee. And I would just get the check, and I'd stay on the plane because this one's going to get ugly there. Amazing stuff as always, gentlemen. Before I close, I always like to hand the ball over to you. Quentin, start us off. Tell them where they can find all your amazing work.
You can find all of our plays on NCAAinsider.com, Notebook Wagering, and NCAA Insiders, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and then at Q Millie.
Matthew.
And I'm Grissom on X. Follow me. Enjoy the show.
Please, gentlemen, go over and follow both of them at Q Millie, at Grissom X, at the Notebook, at NCAA Insiders, and of course, Notebook Wager 1. As we get another week closer to baseball, I won't bring up college basketball, which starts on Monday next week, but we got plenty of time to talk Razorbacks and Gator basketball, excuse me. But plenty of winners on our sheets here. We look forward to playing this back next week. Bragging rights are on for this week, Arkansas and Florida. The winner of that game gets to lead off next week. The loser should have to wear the other person's or team's shirt. So, Matt, if you lose, make sure you got a Florida Gator shirt somewhere. And the same to you, Q, with an Arkansas Razorback. How's that?
Sounds like a deal.
Sounds good.
From myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, from Quentin Mills at Q Millie, and of course, Matt Grissom at Grissom on X. We wish everyone a blessed afternoon and evening. At 5 o'clock, we will close out the week with the closing bell with Ron at Ron A Sports, looking at an NCAA and NFL from an analytical standpoint and data. So, everyone, see you in about 1 hour.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.